In today's video, we're exploring the question of what if you're not stuck? What if you are at a threshold? So welcome to the Wild Rose Path channel, or welcome back. I'm Sarah. If you feel called to join our community, then check out the links in the description below or consider subscribing to the channel. It's pretty windy out here today, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Nature is in full flow. There's no stuck here. But often we are stuck in life, particularly when we're sort of in that midlife phase of becoming. When we are moving through a life transition, we can just have this real feeling of being stuck, particularly when, you know, the old cycle's ended, but the new one's not yet begun. And I talk a bit more about this kind of liminal space in another video specifically about that. But today we're just exploring this kind of mindset shift, if you will, around whether you are actually stuck or whether you are standing more on a threshold. We call it stuck, you know, like things aren't happening, we can't see a way forward. But if we look at it from the point of view of nature, nature doesn't call it stuck. Nature has this point of the in-between where, you know, the plants will flower at this time of year while I'm recording this, and soon they'll be putting down the seeds, and soon they'll be dying back, and it will be winter, and a lot of plants then, you know, go within. We see this in the seasonal cycles, we see it in the moon cycles as well. Again, today I'm recording this, it is on the dark moon. I think the new moon's tomorrow. So there's always these points in nature where, you know, the old cycles kind of come into a close, and then there's like a pause, there's a liminal space, there's a in between, whatever you want to call it, before the new starts. One of my favourite examples actually is from the plants, where, you know, they'll often die back in autumn, winter time, and before they start popping back up in the spring, you know, there's that period of real rooting down, especially the newer plants, where they're really concentrating on rooting into the earth before they break up through the soil surface. So if we were talking, you know, to the plants in terms of our productive society that we live in, where everything's based on productive output, then we'd be like, you know what, well, you haven't grown yet. I can't see anything. There's nothing above the surface to see. You've got no results for everything that you're doing. Well, you know, the plant doesn't think like that. The plant is rooting and is doing so much work behind the scenes, under the surface, within, that it needs to do before it breaks through and before it grows. So these points of the liminal, the in-between, this place of not knowing, it's very important in nature for that fallow time, for things to really root down before they rise. And the more we lean into this theme of it being at a threshold rather than just trying to linearly plow through and get stuck, I think the more we see thresholds, you know, around us. When I look in nature, we live near the fells, and you see the thresholds, particularly now. Actually, you probably can't see it in the shot now. You can't see it in this shot, but there's one of the fells behind me, and there's a clear threshold between the fields, which are kind of at the bottom of the fell, and then the fell itself, where you've got your fell wall. The landscape is different, the growth is different, the terrain is different. So I think when we are feeling stuck, and we then start to look at it as, am I actually at the edge of at a threshold here, ready to cross into something else, it can bring up a few different feelings. I think it's quite an exciting feeling, because, you know, you don't know what's beyond. You have the potential in a way to really start writing that, and that can feel exciting, but at the same time it can also feel quite uncomfortable place to be, because our old identities, our old way of looking at ourselves, maybe of looking at the world, is kind of dropping off, or dropped off. That's the end of that cycle is happening, or happened, and, you know, the new one hasn't started yet. So it is this sort of in between space between the old and the new, and it can feel like a really uncomfortable place to be. We often try and rush that process and get into the new when we need to spend longer in the liminal, and it is gnarly. It's a horrible place to be sometimes, depending on what the transition is. I think historically there were many cultures which practiced sitting in that not knowing and having that and normalised and as part of the process. And I don't think we really have that in our culture nowadays. And as such, it can be extremely difficult to sit in the not knowing, to just be in that place, not have to figure out the answer, not have to try and push on through and do the next thing. And again, this can be a wonderful place to work with plants as teachers. You know, we've already talked in the beginning of the video about how plants can teach us to root before we start growing, start sprouting and rising up. And plants can be really useful here in this in-between place and at this readiness to cross a threshold. And one of the plants I'm really been working with in doing this is Herb Robert. I've done another video about Herb Robert, so I'll talk a little bit deeper about it there. But yeah, most people see Herb Robert as a weed because it gets everywhere. And it grows in all the cracks and almost like the threshold spaces, the in-between spaces. It grows in like the cracks down the side of the drive, down the side of the paving slabs on the patio. You know, it's all in those little in-between kind of spaces that you have. Hawthorn is really a plant of kind of boundaries. It's a lot used around where I live in hedgerows, and hawthorn really just has that connection to the cycles of death and rebirth and boundaries as well. If you're in that in-between space, it's often worth taking some time out, even just to kind of go and sit in the garden or sit in nature and just have that intention really to find kind of your plant to connect with whilst you move through this phase of a transition, and see who steps forward, because it can be really interesting. So I guess the final thought for this video would be, what if your job is not to force the new chapter, but to become the identity, become the person who is able to step across that threshold. So from me and the wood pigeon, thank you for watching this video. If you want to go a bit deeper with this, then, you know, if you feel like you're kind of in that in-between space, so you're maybe not sure quite where you're at, I do have a kind of interactive experience with it's a little bit of a quiz. It's got a couple of questions in that take like a minute or two. And that just helps you to go a little bit deeper, and through answering those couple of questions, you can find out whereabouts, what the terrain is, where you're at right now in your kind of in-between, in your life transition, and also a suggestion of a plant ally to walk alongside you whilst you're in that landscape, and a practice for you there. So if you want to cross the style, I will pop a link in the description below and you can check that out and go a little bit deeper with it. Otherwise, I will see you soon for the next video.